Welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time it's the Season 3 Part 2 review with Barbara Barnett from Blogcritics.org and, of course, Jimmy-Jerome getting together to recap, see how she lines up with what we think of. Speaking of TV critics, speaking of critics, Jerome's TV reviews, there's so much out there now. Hulu, Netflix, ABC, NBC, PBS is still out there. So many new shows. There's too much to watch. There's too much to watch in a given day and still listen to all your IABD podcasts. So go to Jerome's TV reviews there on IABDpresents.com, part of the IABD Presents network, and get the skinny on the shows you should watch, you shouldn't watch. It's a time saver, even though you're eventually going to waste time watching these shows. But they're good ones. Also, patreon.com/IABD. That's a way to figure out other ways, a better way to if you're going to waste your money. Give it to IABD, support us, and all the podcasts at IABDpresents.com, such as this one. It's all been tracked before, the Season 3 Part 2 review.
Star Trek Season 3 Part 2.
Oh my God. Talk about the weakest link and the weakest link of the Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh, it's not the weakest. We still have the last third of the season to go.
Well, thus far. I think they all just stopped caring at this point.
I mean, I would not say all of the episodes are completely terrible. I agree the overall quality's gone down, but there's a couple of pretty good ones in this batch.
I think I remember when I was watching this, at least when I was the first time through when I was little, I think I sort of gave up. I remember watching the Tholian Web, thinking how cool that was. Like the thing kept building and building and building. And I liked Plato's Stepchildren when I was 11.
You didn't like it now?
Less so. And I remember liking the Empath because I really was intrigued by the Empath herself. And the rest of it, I was like, I barely remember some of these. So.
Some of these I just watched for the first time.
Okay. Well,
I never did finish Season 3.
Right, me too. When I watched them all again, but when I first watched it, I think I kind of gave up. It's like what I did with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I mean, I sort of gave up. This is even my pre-adolescent brain said this is utter crap.
So, of the utter crap, what is the best of this pile of crap?
I was thinking about that. I would say the Empath. I would say, the funny thing is I was thinking about this yesterday too. The titles are so much better than the episodes. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. You're not wrong at all.
The titles are brilliant.
I mean, Star Trek has some very literary, interesting titles.
Absolutely.
In the original series. I think the original series titles are better than any of the spinoffs.
Oh yeah, they're great. Well, you know what is funny because a lot of series TV back in the 60s and 70s had really great titles. That was always like a big thing. And then shows stopped having episode titles for a really long time, except if you had a copy of the script.
Interesting.
So, because they weren't like on the screen. And I don't remember if the Star Trek titles were on the screen ever. But,
yeah, they were at the beginning of every episode.
They were. Okay. Now, yes, right. But they stopped doing that. And then they stopped being really clever. Like, for example, like when you got to like House, those episode titles were not ever on the credit. You kind of had to know, you knew what they were called because that's what they were called in TV Guide or online for sure. And everything had a title. But they weren't like, the Empath. So I thought the Empath was of the group the best. What did you think?
We had that as our second best.
What did you have as your first? Plato's
Stepchildren.
Yeah, those two were probably of all of them the most memorable.
Yeah, of these 8 for sure.
Plato's Stepchildren. It was another. They love doing Greek gods. They really loved doing Greek mythology on Star Trek over and over and over and over again. That was like the theme. And it was actually good. And I think I've mentioned this to you before that Plato's Stepchildren was good. And I remember that was like the first thing that I had seen Michael Dunn in, I think.
He was excellent in this.
Have you ever seen him in anything else?
No, but we talked about a bunch of the other stuff he did.
Yeah, so he was like the villain, one of the main villains in the show The Wild Wild West, which they went and they redid as a movie not that long ago. But
with Will Smith and Kevin Kline?
Yeah.
That was like 20 years ago.
Oh, no. What, was that right? 20 years ago?
I'm looking it up right now. 1999, so almost.
That was a long time ago. Okay, never mind.
I was going to say, I was still a kid. Well, I was in high school, but...
Well, yeah. See, I'm old. To me, not too long ago, what could have been 1999. So, yeah. So he was the villain. He was really good. He was, I had to give kudos to that show. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know who was the producer of it. But I have to say, I mean, at the time... that was really ballsy to make the villain the little person. But anyway.
Well, we talked a lot about how his character in Plato's Stepchild, Alexander, was such a complex, interesting character. It wasn't a token character by any means.
No. And you really felt terrible for him when he started having to do, like, you know, almost like an automaton, the bidding of the gods. And they were literally torturing him.
But it was really great that Kirk and his crew didn't understand why he would be singled out as being different. And he had to explain it to them, which I was like, thank God, hopefully we get past that.
Yeah. And there, you know, and of course that episode was said to be remarkable for the first interracial kiss on American television. It was not. Which
there's definitely some debate whether that is true or not. There are other things that claim to be the first.
Well, that's why I said that on American TV there were, and there was another one on American TV in 1960 in the TV show Adventures in Paradise, which I am much too young to ever have seen. But I remember the name of that show. There was an episode called The Big Surf. And then on the TV show Laramie, which again, I'm too young to have remembered seeing, but I remember my mom was a big fan of that show, I think. So that there was a kiss with Nobu McCarthy and Robert Fuller, and then a British one. But there was also, and speaking about the Wild Wild West.
Say, you're looking at the same Wikipedia article I am at the moment, aren't you? And yet, when you ask somebody what the first interracial kiss was on television, most people will say, it was Star Trek.
It's true. And I'm wondering if it was because it was between the star of the show and an African American, that a kiss between an Asian and a Caucasian would not be as taboo.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. But between an African American, I Spy was renowned because of the two main characters in the show, Kelly Robinson and Alexander Scott. Scotty was by far and away the brilliant one, and Kelly was kind of the athlete playboy. And to do that was like, oh my God, how can you? And it's just Bill Cosby. But that was a great show, and it was definitely like a huge step forward in interracial pairings and interracial and African Americans as main characters on TV. But to have it between Kirk and Uhura, where you have two of the main characters of the show, maybe that was it. You know, you have two main characters of the show do this, and
Hurl wasn't technically a series lead.
Yeah, but she was still a main character. By the third season, she was listed on the credits, in the opening credits.
No, only 3 names were ever in the opening credits.
Okay, I thought that they added her and they added Walter Koenig eventually.
No, and Uhura will still frequently in the end credits be lumped on a page with Chapel and a couple of guest stars.
Really?
Yeah, the page after they'll list Sulu, Chekhov, and Scotty.
Yeah, I thought that they started adding some of those guys.
No, it was just Kirk and Spock for the first season, and then they added DeForest Kelly for seasons 2 and 3 in the opening.
Yeah, and I thought that was season 2, and then in season 3 they added Nichelle Nichols and James Doohan.
Nope.
And
it wasn't until the movies where they were more established as, but Hurl was in most of the episodes, so definitely a major character.
She was main cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was an officer.
Right.
She wasn't an ensign or a yeoman.
Sure.
And she outranked
Chekhov,
thank you. It's been a long afternoon. She outranked Chekhov.
Yep.
So, but to have that kiss be between two main cast who would be then together in subsequent episodes, side by side, and you got to wonder. So I think maybe that's why it's memorable, because often it's between a guest star and a main character, or two guest stars. So maybe that's why.
I think that could very well play into it. Yeah, so I've read Nichelle Nichols' biography, and I've read the William Shatner Memories books, and they filmed it both ways, where they actually kissed and where they didn't. But in the episode, you can't tell because their heads are kind of weird.
And it's a picture that's right here, which I'm now looking at.
The picture that we're looking at, they're right there.
Yeah, they're touching. Their lips are definitely touching.
Shatner insisted on filming an actual kiss.
Yeah. Well, and it would make sense to do it. But yeah, no, I liked Plato's Stepchildren, and I would say that, yes. Okay. So I have been convinced by you and my own chatter that Plato's Stepchildren belongs at number 1 among this list.
No, but there's a good argument to be made for the Empath as well. That's one of the first episodes I remember seeing of the entire series.
Really?
Yeah. I would go to the library, and they just had a couple episodes on tape, and that was one of them.
That makes sense, that if it was one of the few that you were able to see.
Yes.
Then you would watch it over and over and over again, because there were no other ones, right?
Right. Yeah, I only had about 4 episodes I could watch like that. And that one, I think it's a good, interesting sci-fi story, and I love McCoy, and it's a McCoy episode pretty strongly, so...
Yeah, it is, and I don't generally love the McCoy. You know me, I totally like that.
You're a Spock, yeah.
Me and Spock have this thing going. So, yeah, but see, those of you guys out there who only know streaming and downloading and just having everything just there, thank you, Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube, and whoever else streams, and Amazon Prime.
When I got my first DVD player, and this was about 17 years ago, all of the Star Trek was one of the first shows coming out on DVD, and it was 2 episodes on a disc for, I think it was about $20, and I collected all 40 volumes of the original series on disc, an insane amount of money, just because I wanted to have them all and finally watch them all. And then, of course, I never finished watching the last few,
which brings us back to where we were. Right.
These really bad episodes.
Yes.
What's the worst, do you think, of this batch?
Oh, God. Everything after... Well, I would say, okay, so Plato's Stepchildren, the Empath, and maybe the Tholian Web were watchable. Everything else?
We have one more episode rated above the Tholian Web.
Which one?
A Lot of Troyes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. I think... I remember that. Franz Nguyen.
Yes.
Yes, who was everywhere. Yes. Okay. I would put that above Tholian Web. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
So, after A Lot of Troyes, then we find it. Well, then we kind of had a tie we've yet to resolve that we're still debating between the Tholian Web and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Frank Gorshin.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. We've talked about that episode before.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's funny because that's an episode I remember very, 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 very well. That was the blackface guy, the guy that was half black and half white.
Yes.
And that was one of the. I would rank that above the Tholian Web.
So we did that one live in an event, and I had never seen it. But it's a very iconic episode, but It's not a good episode at all. And I think the problem with the Tholian Web was it was an okay episode, but it wasn't. They're both ones that seem more iconic than they deserve to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, but
so we struggle with those two.
So you have to look at context.
Mm-hmm.
For Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. The context of it were 1968, is it? 68? 1969. We are less than 5 years from the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. The ridiculousness, and then going back to Roddenberry's idea of that it doesn't matter what you look like, and that the people on the crew couldn't tell the difference between the two of them, right?
I mean, that's why we've ranked it as high as we have. It's just the rest of the story just didn't hold up.
Yeah, but in the times, I mean,
right.
For the times, that was, again, incredibly progressive.
Sure.
And I wonder if they got any grief for that one. Because there was another one that really struck at, and of course getting Frank Gorshin to do it was just great.
I mean, season 3 was so many Batman actors. So many.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Riddler, though. I mean, yeah. The Riddler was awesome. So AV Club gave it a C+, but it outweighed by an overpowering good moments, but outweighed by an overpowering message. This is the thing about looking at it from our perspective, from the next generation's perspective. Mm-hmm. Of looking at this is like, oh my God, that was like so, yes, we get it. But in the 60s, that was like really daring in a way, you know? I mean, things have changed so much since then. And that's why I would say, and I think that's why there's this sort of, either you really think it was one of the best episodes or not. And interestingly, it says, in the Wikipedia, because I'm looking at these various references, they believe it to be one of the finest because it starkly elevates the issue of an unjust racial bigotry, which made it, then continues to make it extremely relevant. I think less so to a certain degree, although not necessarily. And it ends on a bitter note, ambiguous ending. And I think that was kind of interesting too, because there is no answer. We're still, 50 years later, we're still arguing the same freaking thing. Mm-hmm. And there is no answer. So I think in the long run, both in context of the 60s, where it was something that I think needed to be hammered home, because it wasn't an obvious thing, that in the context of our 21st century perch, and that people who never lived through that time might only know through history. It's like me looking at World War II or the Korean War or whatever, and I have no context for it because I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. It's history to me. And it's like, oh, wow, that's really heavy-handed. But back then, we don't know. How was it?
Well, so I'm not taking points off for it being heavy-handed. I mean, I think the idea of having the painted half and half and the way they dealt with race and everything is a really interesting, clever idea. I just thought the story wasn't good. The details of the episode weren't good. And so it's like you've got this great iconic message that's important and should be told and should be done. But if the script behind it's not brilliant, if it doesn't elevate itself to the level of the message they're trying to tell, I mean, that's where I get like, oh, you guys could have done better. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they could have, but it's the third season. They're going down the tubes.
They are. I mean,
they're going down with a fight because, they wanted to get out the messaging that they wanted to get out. I'm just kind of like criticizing the AV Club, and some of the more some of the bloggers.
Well, both the Tholian and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield are in the middle of this third season for our rankings at present. We're not done with season 3, but they're both right about in the middle. So we're still not – these aren't the best episodes of the season, and the season's the worst season of the series. So, even that, they're just not that great.
No, but I would say Plato's Stepchildren, the Empath,
Yeah, those are good episodes. Those are fine episodes.
They're good. I think they stack up well.
Yeah, not all of Season 3 sucked. Plato's Stepchildren we have in the top 5 of Season 3, which the first 4 of we have it at number 4, but 1, 2, 3, and 5 are all from the first third of the season. So, as the season goes down, it gets worse, but that was an outlier that still rose up there.
I wonder if as the season even wore on and on and on, the episodes got weaker because they just knew they weren't coming back and they just stopped.
Yeah, I mean, that could be. We've had some episodes that we're not going to talk about today that I've watched of this last third that are among the worst of Star Trek I've ever seen. One episode in particular, but we'll get to that next episode we talk. We still have a few more here. Tholian Web, though, as we're staying here in the middle of the pack, that's a very Spock-heavy episode, so I would think for you that would rank pretty well.
Yeah, I liked it. I love what I liked about the Tholian Web. Well, I thought that the web itself, that it just, as time went on, the web kept growing, and that I thought just was a really spooky, unnerving, horror-y kind of element to it that we usually don't get in Star Trek.
It's a great effect, but how effective is it when your starship has to stand still for a few hours to be caught in it?
That's true. But I thought it was a cool effect.
No, it looks fantastic.
It really is, because they kept cutting to it. It's like, time is ticking. And it takes the place of tick-tock, right?
Sure.
Kirk is caught between the dimensions.
Yeah, he's phasing out. This has been retconned in Enterprise and Discovery as the second Mirror Universe episode.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which, watching it for the first time recently, I did not see any of the hints that were taken to mean it was Mirror Universe. I didn't get it. But I haven't watched that Enterprise episode that supposedly explains it. Discovery just takes for granted that it was Mirror Universe. So
yeah, I mean, I like the idea that Spock uses his intuition rather than, and McCoy is like, we gotta leave. Whereas Spock is like, no, I'm not leaving without the captain. We gotta leave. The whole kind of a little bit of a reversal. I really like that. Even as Spock episodes go, I thought it was one of the weaker Spock episodes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because there are many better episodes that explore that side of Spock much, much better.
Yeah, but in this batch of 8, that's the only really heavy Spock episode, I believe.
I know. Maybe that's
part of why you didn't like this batch of episodes, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, no, you know what I did like? I mean, I did like Plato's Stepchildren.
Yeah.
I did like, and was that the one? That was the one where Spock was singing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't
Bitter
like that.
Drink Dregs or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't like that. He can't sing. He plays that harp rather well, but he can't sing. Again, a notable moment that I remember from the first time I saw it was that just getting dragged out of him, being tortured almost in a different way, but the same way they didn't have any compunctions about torture, which is a little unnerving. Anyway, but okay. So Tholian Web was okay. As Spock episodes go, I mean, I didn't care for it that much.
Real quick, while we're on Spock, what is your impression of Gregory Peck's grandson playing the new Spock in Discovery?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, no, he hasn't been in the show yet. They're filming season 2, and he's been announced. Well, so I'm letting you know for the first time, Gregory Peck's grandson has been cast as Spock in Discovery.
Okay, wait, hang on a second. I have to see this, all right?
He's not an actor I'm super familiar with. I'm trying to... Is it Ethan Peck? I'm trying to remember his name.
Yes. I love Greg.
It is Ethan Peck, yes.
Gregory Peck. I am in love with Gregory Peck. I don't care that he's 1 million years old. Still alive? No, he died. Gregory Peck's lookalike grandson, Ethan. Okay. So let me see how much he looks like his grandfather. I'm looking at a picture that's got Ethan Peck and Adam Nimoy, who I know. Mm-hmm. I think that's it is Adam Nimoy. Okay, I can. Oh, now I'm looking at a picture of this guy. Oh, he does look like his grandfather. He has the Gregory Peck eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gregory Peck eyes. Whoa.
So just going visually, you think he's going to be a worthy Spock?
Yes, although Zachary Quinto, I never thought that I would like another Spock, but Zachary Quinto was pretty damn amazing as Spock. So
he was good. I don't think he lived up to Nimoy, but I don't think anybody would.
No.
Nimoy's such a distinct, iconic performance, but I don't know that anybody would have done better than Quinto. I think he did pretty good. We'll see. Maybe Ethan Peck will blow us away, and we'll be like, oh, he's better. I don't know.
So he has been in, for those of you out there who don't know, he has been in no movies that I have actually ever seen.
In Time, The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah. Okay, so he was in the 70s show. He played young Kelso in that 70s show.
Uh-huh. So Ashton Kutcher's young double in 2 episodes.
Yeah, and he played Roman Tolliver in Madam Secretary, which I stopped watching after the first season.
Yep.
It
looked like he was in the first season, but he was only in 2 episodes total, so...
Yeah, I don't recall him. But anyway, he's kind of young, so we'll see.
Well, this is a young Spock. This is 10 years before the original series.
And it makes sense. Same thing with Zachary Quinto, right? So you've got a young Spock.
But it's 2 years after The Cage. And Spock in The Cage was laughing and exhibiting emotion. And we're told this will be a different Spock than Nimoy played. So this will be proto-Spock.
Yeah, so was Quinto. I mean, he was a little different.
He was quite different because the emotional trauma of losing his planet and his mother made him more emotional than Nimoy played the role until he was old. When he was old, he played a very emotional Spock. But
yeah, he was playing an emotional Spock, but you saw that. So as good as Leonard Nimoy was at conveying that that angst, and sort of like that undertone of angst and tragedy, I think Quinto did a better job of it. I love Nimoy. I mean, one of my favorite characters of all of television ever was Nimoy's Mr. Spock. And I actually had a chance to tell his son that when I talked to him, when I interviewed him a few years ago. So that was truly a joy. Of course, he didn't have quite the same opinion of his dad. But they did not have a good relationship.
No, they didn't.
Anyway. Okay.
I need to know which of these other 3 is your least favorite. Which one's the worst?
Okay. Wow. Hang on a second.
We've got Wink of an Eye, Mark of Gideon, and Whom's Gods Destroy.
No, I know that part. I just
okay. What are they? Wink of an Eye is the really fast people.
Okay, that would not go at the bottom. I kind of like that one, although it defied logic.
Yes.
Yes, right? Because first, I mean, wouldn't Spock have more of an ability to maybe perceive these people than everyone else? A. B, the really fast stuff didn't actually jibe with some of the physical actions that were happening to inanimate objects that were like phasers.
yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Now I have to say, to my 10-year-old eyes or my 11-year-old eyes, none of that stuff really registered as being bizarre or bad.
Sure.
It's like, oh, that's really cool. They're going really fast. That's really cool. I was not a genius when I was 11 years old. But yes. Okay. That would not go at the bottom. All right. So Wink of an Eye.
That's fair. Whom Gods Destroy is the second Insane Asylum episode.
Okay. I remember that one. And then you have the Mark of Gideon, right?
Yes, which was like people looking through the windows of the Enterprise because they were on a copy of the Enterprise.
Oh, that was the one at the bottom.
You think Gideon's the worst?
Yeah.
We had Whom Gods Destroy as the worst, but we had Gideon right above it.
Okay. So we're pretty much in sync.
Yeah. I mean, the Wink of an Eye of these bottom 3 is the better of the bottom 3.
Well, that's what I mean.
These are all 3 bad episodes.
So the Whom Gods Destroy, I remember, well, I was like, okay, that's the one. And that's actually reasonably memorable because, although I really hated the green girl. Oh my God, I hated her. That really scared when I first saw it the first time. That was one of the few Star Trek episodes that actually scared me as an 11-year-old kid. Well, 1969, I was a little older than that, but as a preteen.
Sure.
It was one of the few episodes that I was literally kind of freaked out by. The guy with the antennas. I mean, I didn't like those guys at all. That was like the penal colony, right? They were scapees from a penal colony. I would not put that one at the bottom. I'd put that second to the bottom.
Okay.
And where did you put it?
The bottom of this batch.
Okay. I wouldn't put it at the bottom.
To me, it was just a redo of... I mean, Star Trek repeated themselves a lot, but it was a repeat of Dagger of the Mind with more interesting aliens.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that...
But an inferior story.
Yeah, but the aliens were cool.
The aliens were cool. The story just sucked.
But did you notice the guy with the antennas and the long white hair? Mm-hmm. Like, other people like him appeared in other episodes?
He's an Andorian, yeah.
Yeah.
So we saw him in Journey to Babel.
Yes, we did. And I was like, oh, okay. And then this guy, yes, right. But again, that's kind of interesting. But the girl with the green skin, that actress, I don't remember who she is, but she was in like everything on TV. She was in every show. She was a guest star. She was like Diana Moldauer, who was in everything, or France Nguyen, who was like in everything.
The actress was Yvonne Craig.
She was in Man from U.N.C.L.E. She was, I mean, all of these shows.
She was Batgirl.
Oh, that's right.
I told you, this is the season of Batman actors. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yes. Well, wait, you have Yvonne Craig.
Uh-huh.
And Frank Gorshin, and who else?
Catwoman.
Oh, right. Julie
Newmar, that's correct. Yeah, that was, I mean, she's great. Thank you.
And that's funny because, I mean, Batman was on ABC, and Star Trek was on NBC.
Lee Merriweather.
Oh, yeah.
So, I guess Grace Lee Whitney was in an episode of Batman as well.
That I don't remember.
She was in a King Tut's episode of Batman playing Neela, an Egyptian. I'm looking at a picture right now.
Okay.
Joan Collins also did an episode of Batman. Of course, she did an episode of Star Trek.
Yep.
Malachi Throne did an episode of each.
He was in everything. He was in
Roger C. Carmel. He was in a lot of stuff.
So all those 60s character actors and actresses were in like everything.
So any thoughts on this group of episodes overall?
I don't think they were all that terrible in the grand scheme of things. Not worse than the ones to come.
Yeah, I think they were worse than the first third of the season, but I think the final third of the season are the worst, basically. Yeah. So season 3 steadily went downhill.
Well, as is true for many TV series that know the writing on the wall.
Yeah, I don't know. If it were me, I would want to give the best ending possible. Like, I don't have much time. I want to do the best I can before I go out.
But the mindset then was, and if you look at the list of writers and directors, very few of them were regulars. So if you have a TV series now, there's a stable of writers and directors that work on that show.
Right.
And their work is distinctive. I mean, if you look at West Wing or you look at, House, it is the one that I know the best, obviously. But if you look at the way TV is written now, you have a stable of regular writers, and they want to see their project to the end. Mm-hmm. Not so much with Star Trek, because you had a lot of people come and go. And in the third, so as people are getting to the end of it, all the crew is like, all right, let's see, what's our next gig starting next year? But yeah, so I don't think there was any feeling that they needed to make it the best ever, because I don't think there was any commitment.
Right. And they had no idea we'd still be watching and analyzing it 50 some years later.
Oh, no, they probably thought, okay, we're done. Goodbye. What's our next gig?
Yep. Well, because back then, TV didn't have the life cycle it has now.
Mm-mm.
Until it did. Suddenly.
Until it did. Right. And the only time you could see a rerun was in the summer.
Right.
And you didn't see all the reruns. Or then, if you were lucky enough, you went into syndication at 11:30 at night after the night news and after Johnny Carson.
But that's where Star Trek thrived and found a bigger audience.
Yeah, or after school at, like 3:30 in the afternoon, our time, which is when Star Trek was on. It was on at 3:30. I came home from school and I turned it on. Mm-hmm. But that was the only way to watch any of those episodes, even a second time.
Yep.
So, oh gosh, we've got
8 episodes left.
O'Rourke is leading in the Ipsos Reuters poll. Yes. It's because my son moved to Texas. All right. Well, anyway, this was good. And one more series, huh?
One more batch of episodes, and then we'll be moving on to the animated series.
Okay. That's cool.
So, yep, I'm sorry that I'm going to ask you to suffer through 8 more of these, but we'll talk again we've really slowed down on the recording. We got really busy, so it'll probably be a couple months before we finish it. But
that's probably good for me.
So I'll reach out to you again. I know we're not recording for another month from now.
Okay.
The next 4 weeks we're not recording any. But we've got 4 episodes left to record, and then I'll reach back out to you. And man, we got to suffer through these last ones.
Yeah, it's what it's called, suffering through the good and the bad. That's when you pick up a podcast, right?
Oh, at this point, we're just looking at the motion picture with that as the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, let's get through this, and we'll get to the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So,
awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara, and I'll see you soon.
All right, well, take care.
You too.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?